Well, it's that time of year again. A time for reflection, for nostalgia, and for making arbitrary lists about the media we've consumed over the last 12 months. This year, the feeling is tenfold as the decade draws to a close, giving us time to process 10 years' worth of memories. It's particularly crazy for me to think that I spent this entire decade minus 2 days as a legal adult. But rather than falling down that rabbit hole of existential dread, why don't I just count down my 10 favorite games from the last 10 years? Yeah, that seems more fun. This is essentially a personal Game of the Year list spanning over the course of a decade, destined to be highly subjective and therefore wrong. With that in mind, let's turn back the clock to a time when California girls dominated the airwaves and Chuck Norris jokes were still considered vaguely funny. But first, the runner-ups. Amnesia, The Dark Descent. Fuck that water monster, am I right? Dragon Age 2. Thetis has a lot more recycled assets than I remember, but the heart is still there. Mass Effect 3. Just end it with the Citadel DLC and pretend the final mission didn't happen. BioShock Infinite. Underwater objectivism, meet American exceptionalism in the sky. Far Cry 4. Amita, are we the baddies? Fran Bow. How to portray mental illness in a horror game without demonizing the mentally ill. Stardew Valley. Emily is best girl. Fight me. Resident Evil 7. Welcome to the family, son. Detroit. Become Human. This won't stand racism. Resident Evil 2 Remake. You can run, you can hide, but X still gonna give it to you. And now, on to the main event. I'm going to be outing myself as a total late bloomer by saying this, but Mass Effect was the first game series that I completed in full. After being drawn into the potential the settings and characters had to offer in the first installment, I was delighted to discover that not only had the mechanics greatly improved, I could now bang all kinds of different aliens. There was no better time to be playing as FemShep. Would you rather woo Bird Cat Skeleton Man or Dying Frog Boy? Not only were the characters as endearing as ever, but the stakes were raised, making for a truly gripping story and a wonderfully sinister performance by the great Martin Sheen.
Then see to it that we don't lose her.
Then there's the equally famous and infamous suicide mission. I'm not gonna lie, I needed a calculator every time I played after my initial attempt where I lost tally in the heating vents. With all the various outcomes, it's understandable why the fanbase was upset with the lazy, color-coded endings of Mass Effect 3. Not only is Mass Effect 2 my game of the year for 2010, it's easily one of my favorite games of all time. This one was kind of inevitable, wasn't it? I can still remember the E3 showcases, the live-action TV commercials, and the overwhelming sense of hype that permeated every corner of the internet. I was so excited for this game, I took a bus down to Walmart just so I could own a physical copy with that sweet, glossy map. And you know what? At the time, it didn't disappoint. Hindsight might be one hell of a drug, but that doesn't change the fact that The Elder Scrolls V drew everybody in with its unprecedented open world, multiple playable races, and seemingly endless side quests. While I see the flaws in it now, and there are many, very few games have managed to replicate that feeling of wonder that washed over me the first time I crawled out of that cave in Helgen, reached the top of the 7,000 steps, or heard Parthenax's booming voice right in my ear. Bethesda's glory days are well behind them now, but we'll always have those memories of Skyrim. I'm not sure if Telltale Games realized the impact they were about to have on episodic adventure stories and the gaming industry in general when they released episode 1 of the first season of The Walking Dead. They certainly didn't know how to handle the success, if their closure in 2018 is any indication of the chaos that was going on behind the scenes, but I'm here to talk about the good times. It obviously wasn't the first game to feature multiple branching dialogue choices, but it was definitely a trendsetter in the years to come and cemented the Telltale formula. The datification levels in Season 1 are so strong, I was ready to physically punch my way through a horde of zombies just to make sure Clementine made it through another day.
Daddy said it's called a salt lick.
Yeah, but don't lick it. It's gross.
Did you lick it?
I don't know.
With the emotional resonation the players felt, it's hardly a wonder that the gaming industry took their cues from The Walking Dead for as long as they did. Crazy to think that if it weren't for Lee, we wouldn't have the likes of Uberdad Kratos. Ooh, speaking of zombie apocalypse datification, how could I possibly forget the standout game of the genre? Having been an exclusively PC gamer for years, I was very much late to the Cordyceps party. I knew it was bound to be good based on all the praise it's earned from critics and audiences alike, so I was quick to pick up the remastered edition when I finally got around to buying a PS4. The story, the characterizations, even the generally outdated graphics took my breath away, and the performances of Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson left me in tears more than once. As a general rule, I'm used to the voice acting in a game failing to match the quality and gravitas of the writing. Even the most poignant of lines can be botched with the wrong delivery.
Stop it, Nicole. I can't move.
And then there's Troy and Ashley, making Daniel Day-Lewis look like a schmuck.
They are gonna storm Daniel Day-Lewis's house, schlep him out into the street, and shoot him in the head. That's how good your performance is.
If nothing else, it deserves a spot on this list for tricking me into thinking it was a game about babysitting Ellen Page. Oh look, another BioWare RPG with romance mechanics that sunk its hooks into me, only this time, it's dragon-flavored! After the relative disappointment that was Dragon Age 2, Inquisition seemed to take everyone by surprise, snatching up endless Game of the Year awards and showing the world what the Frostbite engine was capable of. No reason to get our hopes up there, right?
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
With all my jabs at EA aside, Inquisition is a game that brought me more joy than any other RPG in the last 10 years. The sharp dialogue, intriguing plot, and genuinely organic relationships between characters has had me coming back so many times, I've logged over 1,500 hours at this point. Plus, it's the first BioWare game to include exclusively same-sex relationships, which delights me to no end. Every sandbox feels different, and I could spend most of my time just wandering around Skyhold, eavesdropping on the ambient conversations and listening to Meriden sick tunes.
But she was so fast and quick with her bow, no one quite knew where she came from.
Aw yeah, this beat slaps. Now we all just have to hold our breath and hope they don't drop the ball with Dragon Age 4. This is the first entry on this list that could be considered controversial, given that it wasn't nearly as well received as the other games I've already mentioned. Yeah, the dialogue is clunky, the lip sync is horrible, and even the voice acting can be questionable at times.
You have X-ray vision, dude? I don't even know what's in my pockets.
But you know what? It also taught me a very important life lesson. Not only is it okay to cry at video games, it can actually be extremely cathartic. And my god, did this game make me cry. From the guilt that comes with leaving an old friend behind and being forced to face them again, to the seemingly impossible choices that are presented to you as the story progresses, to the crushing weight of the finale should you choose the lives of the many over the one you love most. You needn't look any further than my playthrough from last year to see what a devastating impact the story can have on particularly emotional players.
This is so mean. God, she can't even walk. I'm so sorry. Oh, God.
The criticisms against Life is Strange are valid, but that can't take away from my own deeply moving personal experience with it. And now for something completely different. I'll be the first to admit that environmental puzzles never have been and never will be my strong suit, especially if they're time-based. So it says a lot in Inside's favor that I was willing to privately humiliate myself time and time again in this boy-killing simulator and still walk away feeling like it was my best gaming experience of the year. Unlike most of the notably dialogue-heavy and story-driven games on this list, it features no dialogue whatsoever, and the story is left largely up to the player to gather from the clues the setting provides. The atmosphere draws you in, thanks in no small part to some incredible Foley work. It cloaks itself in ambiguity, leaving room for endless analyses and fan theories that can send a person down a rabbit hole of video essays. Though it's easily the shortest game on this list, it stayed with me long after my blobby avatar rolled to a gentle stop on the shore. Honestly, were you expecting anything else? While I've always advocated for the potential that video games have to engage with the players, Breath of the Wild was the first game I played that felt like it was truly harnessing that potential. You don't need me to tell you just how wide open this game is, not only in scale, but also the sheer scope of what you're able to do within it. Nintendo didn't just deliver what companies like Bethesda have been promising for years, they did it on a handheld console.
That mountain is not just a backdrop. You can walk all the way to the top of that mountain.
The wide open spaces can feel lonely, but never empty, with hidden secrets and new discoveries waiting around every corner of the map. Even the NPCs breathe life into this version of Hyrule, with many races getting a whole new design from previous games. Not satisfied with androgynous twink boys? No worries, we've got sexy fish people, buff desert ladies, and birds in halter tops. I have a confession to make. I never played the original Red Dead Redemption. I've watched others play it, and I know the story and characters well, but by the time I got into console gaming, the PS4 had already come out. Still, I was excited as the rest of the world when the prequel was announced, eager to jump in on my own rootin', tootin', shootin' adventure. I was expecting amazing graphics and those classic zany rockstar missions, but what I wasn't expecting was to fall so completely in love with the character of Arthur Morgan.
Oh, it's a toy boat!
Given that I've been bored with gruff male protagonists for years, nothing could have surprised me more than the level of attachment I felt towards Arthur. My memories of sleeping under the stars, taking ye old selfies, and sketching in his journal are some of my fondest in gaming. It wasn't long before I felt like I was a member of the Vanderlyn gang myself, which only made it hurt more when it all fell apart. Hell, this game even made me care about horses. And so, we've come full circle, back to the present and my latest all-consuming obsession. Would you believe that up until this year, I thought I didn't like turn-based strategy games? With the exception of Pokemon, they've never really managed to hold my interest, leaving me hungry for the fast-paced button-mashing I'm used to. Honestly, if my far more strategically minded girlfriend hadn't so highly recommended it, I doubt I would have given Three Houses a chance. 7 playthroughs and nearly 350 logged hours of gameplay later, I can officially say I've changed my mind. While Three Houses might be my game of the year, it might be more apt to call it the best board game I've ever played, crossed with the best anime I've ever watched. The characters and their interactions with each other are endlessly charming, and the gameplay itself leaves me in this zen-like state where I don't even realize it's been making me do math. Whether you're into crunching numbers and optimizing character builds, or hosting tea parties for your favorite waifu and showering them with gifts, this game has got you covered. Sorry, Avengers Endgame. Looks like you're gonna have to settle for my second favorite piece of media from 2019 that employs the use of a 5-year time skip. Well, I guess that about wraps it up. With nothing left to distract me, I guess I have no choice but to stare into the existential void that finds me at the end of each orbital period. Oh well, at least New Horizons comes out in March. Happy New Year, everybody!